Le va a pegar Guglielmo Vicario buscando a Richarlison. Ganando por arriba Hincapié. Ahí está Mikel Merino, el pase de Merino para Trossard. Trossard que va a pisar área, mete el pase raso a Eberechi Eze. Ese que tiene el hat-trick. ¡Ahí lo tienes! Ese. El hombre del derbi del norte de Londres. El primero que juega y hat-trick a la cazuela. El rey del Emirates Stadium. Este momento es para él. Lo sabe él, lo saben sus compañeros, lo sabe todo el estadio. 3 goles como 3 soles para dinamitar el derbi. Arsenal 4, hat-trick de Eberechi Eze, Tottenham 1. Hat-trick. 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 El rey. Hat-trick. El rey. Ese. Ese. El rey. Arsenal 4. Tottenham 1. Eberechi Eze.
This is Arsecast Extra.
Hello and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, as always, with James from Gunnerblog. James.
Goodly morning. The goodliest morning you can have.
And
It's happened again. It's happened again. You know the rest.
you know the rest.
We know the rest.
We know the rest.
Thank you, Gilbert and Wojciech. Am I right in saying?
You are right. Gilbert and Wojciech. It's like a Las Vegas duo. Magician.
It's a double act we were robbed of. But what can I say? Yes, goodly morning, Andrew, and everybody. What a fantastic morning to wake up to today after a brilliant and beautiful derby demolition yesterday.
Oh, my God. It was so good. You know, it was one of those games when I was thinking about it, and because of what had happened the previous day, you know, with Liverpool and then with Manchester City, sort of leaving aside the derby itself, right, which of course is a huge game in any season, and you want to win it. But you know, I was sort of imagining in my head making breakfast yesterday and then doing the dishes and stuff like that, and I was sort of like, you know, I love a bit of Arsenal destroyed Tottenham in the North London derby. I was going, you know, is that too much? Am I being greedy? Am I being avaricious here? And there was all this sort of like, well, Arsenal have to take advantage. This is the kind of game where they can make a statement. And I was going, but like, if we could actually destroy and humiliate them as well, I'd really, really, really like that. So it was like a dream come true, you know, in all kinds of ways.
In all kinds of ways. I mean, not least for Eberechi Eze, who, I mean, the man makes me want to become religious, to be honest. He is the greatest advertisement for prayer going. Prayed for a hat-trick. He got it. I need to pray more, Andrew. That's what I'm learning.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I mean, listen, perhaps there's a selective element to this thing, because I'm sure this isn't the first time he's prayed for a hat-trick.
Well, then I can only congratulate God on his excellent judgment on deciding it to award it on this day of all days.
God is a gooner, is that what we're saying?
Listen, I don't know what more evidence we need.
I feel like, you know, he might have been playing some tricks on us down the years, though, to be fair.
It's all part of his plan.
Oh, he moves in mysterious ways, like fucking Bono.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of was a kind of supernatural, spiritually perfect occasion, and yeah, I mean, we completely took Spurs apart. The great thing about a derby win is that there's kind of a twofold enjoyment to it. Obviously, there's your own satisfaction as a fan of the triumphant club, and being able to sort of, you know, soak that in, watch the highlights, watch the analysis. But there's the whole other aspect of seeing them their fans in absolute meltdown.
Yes.
Which is so delicious. It's a beautiful dessert to follow the main course of beating them.
Is that why you were slightly late this morning? You were just watching fan reaction videos.
I mean, you kid, Andrew, but a lot of that has been going on. And obviously, you know, we're all across the world as a nation of Arsenal fans, but we all, unfortunately, know a Spurs fan, and so yeah, it's just wonderful to wake up to them in this degree of pain.
Yeah. Oh, it is good, isn't it? It is good.
Slightly less Christian message from me there.
Love thy neighbour, unless they're a Tottenham fan, in which case they can go fuck themselves.
I've got a long way to go before God starts granting me hat-tricks.
Well, listen, a single goal at a time will work for you. You don't need the hat-tricks at this point. Tell me about, you know, the build-up, the atmosphere, what it was like inside the stadium, because there was a very concerted effort on the part of the club to maybe put right some of what went wrong last season when it came to sort of pre-game build-up and everything else. There was a Tifo, and I have to give a huge shout out to Dan Evans, who is the guy who designed that. You'll find him on Instagram. Let me see. He's Dan X Draws on Instagram if you want to go follow his stuff. It looked fucking great, I have to say. And the sort of the lights and the dark, and then the Tifo coming up and the fireworky things and the noise of the crowd. I know you were in the press box, but you're still adjacent to how it felt in the stadium. So it must have been really something.
It was. And, you know, I think the club certainly were aware of the fact that people were pretty underwhelmed with the Tifo against was it against PSG?
I don't know if you call it a Tifo, more like a tea cloth. With just the Arsenal
tea bag.
Yeah, the club teabagged us back in April. And is that no? We go a different direction, but you know what I mean.
And listen, hats off to everybody involved.
It was brilliant.
That they really, really delivered this time. There was a lot of consultation, I think, with supporters and fan groups to make sure they got it right. There was kind of no expense spared in the production and the execution. It was a brilliant design. I think seeing Sol Campbell's image up there was absolutely right and fitting.
Yeah, I mean, you had to.
Yeah,
you couldn't.
It was great, and like, you know, those shots of the Tifo displayed in front of the North Bank with the fireworks going off behind. Add in that we're deep into November now, so like it was dark. It felt like a night game. You know, it was a 4:30 kickoff, but it really felt like at 8 p.m. You know, in terms of sort of the atmosphere that built across the day, and it was electric. So, you know, we know how big Mikel is on Arsenal's home being a fortress, being our house, and I think those elements really contributed and delivered, and I think the club nailed it this time.
Oh, 100%. And that, of course, you know, on top of all the anticipation and the excitement about this game, and again, going back to what happened on Saturday with Liverpool and Manchester City, the opportunity for Arsenal to really make a statement in the title race. So let's get into the game.
Yeah. Before we do, I mean, there was obviously a bit of news with the team sheets in terms of some players back.
Yes.
Which again, I think, you know, gave everybody a little bit of a boost. I was obviously chatter throughout the day. People had been on #WalkWatch, seeing which of the walking wounded were indeed walking and potentially not wounded. And then we got Madueke, Martinelli back and on the bench. Was that it?
That's right, yeah. I mean, Martin Odegaard was there with the squad at the team hotel, I think. From what I gathered from Mikel Arteta when he was talking pre-game, he sort of said he wasn't 100% ready for a game like this, a game of this intensity, which, you know, I understand, having been out for, you know, quite a while. And caution is probably the right thing when we're bringing these guys back and bringing them back gradually. But it did make the bench look a bit more lively if we needed it. You felt like there were things that we could do in the game, and certainly even, maybe we'll talk about it a bit later, when the game was the way it was in the second half, could we have done things slightly differently, with the players that we had on the pitch? But, I think it's a moot point really, but we did have a couple of questions about that. The big issue, of course, was like who was going to play in Gabriel's position, and the options, with Ricardo Calafiori in at left back, the options were Christian Mosquera and Piero Hincapié, and Mikel Arteta went for Piero Hincapié, kept that left foot, right foot balance at the heart of the defence. I think that's more or less what you had said last week when we talked about this, that your gut feeling, I can't remember if you said your gut feeling was Hincapié or Mosquera.
I think I said Hincapié.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think so.
Let's say that I did, regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Nobody can find out now at this point. It's all in the past. There's no archive.
After we did the podcast, somebody, I think in the Discord, was saying, that they sort of broadly agree about Hincapié, but maybe the derby was sort of too big a game to throw him straight into, playing him in a game of this magnitude or this intensity might have been a step too far. I mean, I actually think his experience and the fact that he has won a league title and played in huge games in Germany and in South America as well, internationally, sort of gave him the edge here. And he did step in pretty seamlessly, I have to say. He obviously wasn't the player who took the headlines on the day, but Mikel Arteta made a point, I think, of referencing him in his post-match press conference. And
on Sky.
I thought he was very good. Very good.
I did too. I mean, I think you can go through this team from front to back and talk about how good people were.
True.
We'll do that probably because I think it's worth highlighting some of the people that made big contributions to this game, aside from Eberechi Eze, who's obviously going to be the headline guy in this particular episode. But, I mean, did he sort of set the tone early on with that pass to Declan Rice? The little scoopy over-the-top kind of thing, which I think our players kind of like, I guess it is a way of trying to get beyond a packed defence when an opposition team is sitting as deep as Spurs sit. He set it up. It fell for Declan Rice. It was one of those, when they say on commentary, maybe he's hit that too well. Sort of like, actually, I think that's right. If he sort of scuffs it into the ground, maybe it goes between the keeper's legs. As it was, he caught it really, really well on the volley. Vicario came out well to save. It hit a defender and went just wide. But that was sort of Eze announcing himself in this game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think he had a couple of those little scoop passes in the course of the game. And this was a lovely one. Maybe Rice would think he should score there. Well, I mean, one thing we didn't talk about in the lineups was Spurs obviously went with 5 at the back, right? So I think that told you everything about their game plan and their intentions and their ambitions, maybe, or lack thereof. And I guess we needed that sort of ingenuity on the edge of the box, and as I showed that in that moment, which was a sign of what was to come.
Yeah, clearly we don't give a fuck really about Spurs or the way they set up.
But it's fun to talk about their failings, isn't
it?
Absolutely.
But I was sort of curious as to what you thought of the way that they set up, because obviously they came to frustrate Arsenal. They said, listen, Arsenal sometimes have a bit of an issue with breaking down low blocks. Let's sit in a low block and make life really difficult for them in the way that Thomas Frank's teams have done before, with Brentford. And when they've come to the Emirates, they've made it really difficult for us in the past. But I sort of looked at the Spurs team and the bench, and I'm not saying I covet any of these players, but they had Pedro Porro, who's been quite effective for them, Kolo Muani, Brennan Johnson, Matthias Tell, Xavi Simons, sort of on the bench on top of what they already had on the pitch, with Richarlison and whatever other guy they had up top there.
Odegaard and...
Odegaard, yeah, exactly. And Kudus. another nothing performance from him against Arsenal. But, you know, I'm not saying I wanted them to do anything different, but it felt sort of at odds with the way that their squad has been built. But clearly that's the way Thomas Frank thought that they could get something from this game. And I suppose, to be fair, their plan worked until it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they set up, I was thinking, oh, this isn't going to be pretty. You know, knowing Thomas Frank and knowing the level of organisation and sometimes shithousery that his teams have deployed, I was thinking this is going to be a slog. And I think that first 25 minutes or so, with the exception of maybe that chance for Rice, or there might have been another opportunity for Trossard, was a bit of a slog. It was quite hard work. I don't think it was a particularly good game, actually. I mean, I know it sort of sounds crazy now because it sort of all ended like a bit of a dream for us, but I think that first 25 minutes, I suppose Spurs were doing what they set out to do, right? Which was make the game bitty, stop-start, be frustrating. The problem, I suppose, with their plan is that it never really extended further than that. As far as I could see, they'd basically come for a 0-0. And as soon as they went behind, everything they'd prepared went out the window.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it, you know. I think you can, when you're playing a game like this, and if you're in the position that Tottenham are in, the idea that you might come to the Emirates and try and frustrate Arsenal, I think makes sense, right? For an opposition manager, make the game stop-start, make it frustrating, you know, take time over the free kicks, right? So they get a free kick, they stand over it for a bit, and then Bukayo comes to sort of lump it towards our box, which, you know, I think we dealt with really, really well. I think where the sort of fundamental flaw in that plan is that you've got to frustrate the opposition, but also be prepared to have a go yourself when you can get the ball in the opposition half, and they just could not do that. And it might be down to their ineptitude, it might be down to how well Arsenal controlled the game and simply did not let them play in our half at all, because, you know, it was predominantly played in the Tottenham half. So it was like half a plan, right? The frustration part, okay, I get it. And there are going to be teams who come and try and do that to us more and more. I think the better we get, the more teams are going to say, well, if we go to Arsenal and open up and try and play them, we're going to get fucking ripped apart by, look at this team that they have with the players they have. They're going to tear us to pieces. So I think this is something that we're going to face more and more, but you can't have half a plan. You have to try, I think, at least show some kind of attacking endeavour. It was very interesting. Thierry Henry was quite scathing of them on Sky. I don't know if you saw any of it or caught up with any of it.
Some pieces, but
you know, he sort of was saying, look at them. They're like playing 5-2-3. And Thomas Frank came out after, did the interview on Sky Sports, and he said, yeah, we played a 5-4-1. And Henry was like, that's not a 5-4-1. You know, they're playing 5-2-3, and like the three aren't getting anywhere. And, you know, he was quite scathing about the tactic that they had. So it felt, and I'm obviously very happy about it, quite imbalanced, you know, in the sense that they sat deep. And I think another part of what we should probably talk about is the way that Arsenal responded to Tottenham playing in that way. That there were obviously expectations that this was going to be the approach. Arteta spoke about it afterwards when he said he had time to prepare, and then we saw the lineup. We made a couple of adjustments. There is, you know, obviously a difficulty with playing a team that sits really deep, but the way maybe that Arsenal used the control they had in the game to sort of lull Tottenham almost into a false sense of security in some ways, because that first half an hour wasn't replete with chances, but then all of a sudden we start to find space, and then the question becomes, how are Arsenal finding space in the positions that we did, given the setup that Tottenham had, which was basically 5 at the back and 2 holding midfielders sitting in front? How do we have the space to find the goals that we did in that sort of period in the last 10 minutes of the first half?
Yeah, and I think Mikel Merino was quite a big part of that. Obviously, he creates the opening goal, but the way that he instead of just sort of posting himself up against three centre halves, was dropping into space, was unsettling Tottenham and giving us overloads in other areas of the pitch. So I thought his positional play from centre forward was pretty intelligent, actually, and by vacating that number 9 space at times, he created areas for others to move into, to run into, and you see that beautifully on the first goal where Merino picks the ball up. What is it, 30 yards out, 35 yards out, and it's Leandro Trossard from the left hand side darting in, making what you can only really call a Freddie Ljungberg diagonal run into the penalty box.
I mean, we were talking a little bit, weren't we, in the first half about Merino on WhatsApp, and it was sort of like I was looking at him and I could see him dropping deep, and he was very secure in possession, but he was dropping out to the right-hand side as well. So it was sort of like there has to be a tactical plan. This is not Mikel Merino going rogue, because that's not what he does, and it's not what Mikel Arteta would want from him. So it was clearly a tactical thing. But then, you see the fruits of that, the fruition of that is that when he drifts out there, the three central defenders have, not that they don't have anyone to pick up, but the guy who ostensibly is supposed to be occupying them is nowhere near. So you have three guys sort of standing going, well, who are we supposed to mark here? And when Merino, as you said, creates that first goal, he's a good, he's playing in sort of the position you would expect a number 10 to be. And nobody's gone with him because they're like, well, if we go with him, then we're dragged out of position. And if we get dragged out of position, then Arsenal might hurt us. So, I mean, do you think is he like this? I don't know. He's sort of like a decoy guy in some ways, the way that he plays or the way that he's asked to play by Mikel Arteta, that the technical security that he has and the intelligence I think he has to recognise where he needs to move on the pitch as and when the play is developing. And I think it's quite noticeable, isn't it, that most of what we did, well, not most, but quite a lot of what we did, particularly in the first half, and certainly the first two Eze goals, come from Arsenal really putting pressure on Spurs down that right-hand side.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the right-hand side was absolutely terrific, I thought, throughout the game. It's unusual, really, for us to get this far into a big Arsenal win without mentioning Bukayo Saka. And it's interesting because it sort of wasn't his day, really. The story isn't about him, but I still thought he had some really great moments in the game and worked so hard, was a real menace. Jurrien Timber behind him was outstanding.
Preposterously good. I think, on another day, we're talking about him as maybe the main man. He was unbelievably good, but obviously the hat-trick for Eze and everything else gets the headlines. But he has been so impressive. I thought he was just outside. I mean, he's not alone. I mean, we can go through it, but yeah, you're right. That's sort of one of the conversations we might have had over the last little while, was the combination on the right between Ben White and Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard was really, really important for Arsenal, right? And then it feels like it's taken a little bit of time and maybe some work on the training ground or maybe an adjustment for Mikel Arteta in terms of where Jurrien Timber plays. But the way that he connects with Bukayo Saka now is just outstanding.
Yeah, and their physical intensity on that side is monstrous, really. I mean, the way that they defend together, attack together. I was having the same thought after the game about how for so long that kind of White, Odegaard, Saka triangle was so integral to everything we did. And, this is a game where everything came down that right-hand side, but two of those players were absent. And I think it does sort of demonstrate the way in which the team has evolved, but also just the massive progress that Jurrien Timber particularly has made individually. I think I'm not sure there's a fullback, playing better football in the Premier League right now, to be honest. I think he's just top marks in all areas, and he's adding a kind of attacking threat and dynamism now on a regular basis that was probably the kind of last piece of the puzzle for him. I think he's always been an outstanding kind of defensive player. I think he's always been like very good on the retention side, very clean in his use of the ball, but now he's a genuine bona fide threat on that side too.
Yeah, 2 goals and 3 assists for him so far this season.
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad for a fullback.
But yeah, to come back to the goal, I mean, listen, who cares about Spurs? But Mikel Merino is granted an unusual length of time in the middle of the pitch. You know, he has the ball for sort of 3 or 4 seconds, which in Premier League games doesn't really happen. That said, the way he uses it is brilliant. Like, it's a really beautiful pass through to Trossard, and there's Trossard delivering again in a big moment. He just keeps on doing it.
He keeps on doing it. It's almost like, you know, he's a good player who, you know, is very useful to Arsenal this season. I don't know. I don't want to keep beating that drum, but, you know, I think I have a little bit of a question about Trossard later, so maybe we'll come to him. But I think, yeah, you're right. The movement is smart. Perhaps a touch of good fortune on the finish, but, you know, you get yourself into a position. If you're not in, you can't win, as the old saying goes. And I think he was rewarded for his movement. I think the pass from Merino is really, really excellent. I mean, the second goal then comes, I mean, it's Timber just being too strong. Trossard is over on the right-hand side. There's a cross from Timber, which is headed away. I have to say, Declan Rice yesterday, sometimes you can see a player. Do you ever see like a team that isn't there for the second ball? Whatever it is about the day in question, they're just not active. They don't recognize the moments in the game where they need to be on it. And Declan Rice yesterday, from the first second, was absolutely on it. The reaction times, how quick he is to get to that ball, to that headed clearance, to play it first time, by the way, into Eberechi Eze. You know, it's sort of one of those where he plays it just on the half volley, doesn't he, to Eze inside the box. Mm-hmm. It's great from Declan Rice. Obviously, the Eze stuff is what caps it all off, but I think Rice deserves credit in that moment for being aware of where that ball is going to be and making sure that it gets into Eze. And then the touches and the finish, and it's in the back of the net for 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great shot, actually, of when Timber's cross is headed away and there's not really a Spurs player in sight on the edge of that box, but Rice is there. Merino, again, is there 30 yards from goal when a cross has gone into the box, showing how regularly he was sort of dropping deep. Calafiori is there. Arsenal were first to all those second balls. And I think once they got the first goal, their tails were up, weren't they? I mean, I think Spurs, from their perspective, they must have thought, right, we've gone behind. If we can just get to half time, maybe we make a change, maybe we shift the strategy, maybe we adapt. And then Arsenal go and score a second, right off the back of it. And it's almost game over at that point.
Yeah.
And Eze, just brilliant individual quality, the footwork in the box, the bravado to take that on. And I think a real theme of this game, and maybe of Eze and Trossard as goal scorers, it's something Mikel touched on after the game, is their willingness to take the shot on when it's not necessarily the perfect angle or perfect connection. Like even this one, it's with his strong foot, but he sort of toe pokes the ball when it's almost got away from him.
Yeah, he kind of has to jump, doesn't he, and twirl and,
Exactly that. And Trossard, his goal, the ball sort of, he turns, it's behind him, he hits it with his left foot. The two-footedness of both players is really important in these goals as well. And yeah, I do think for a side who, we had a lot of years under Arsene Wenger of being accused of trying to sort of walk the ball in, and even more latterly, I think there was a sense of like our patterns of play were sort of so set in stone. And I do think both these guys, they're gamblers. They're willing to take that chance, and sometimes you get your reward.
I mean, it's such a big moment for him as well, and we'll maybe talk about it in the wider context. But to score that goal, to make it 2-0 at home in your first senior North London derby as an Arsenal player, given his story, that might have been enough. It wasn't the case at all, but it was a It was a big goal, particularly given how quickly it came after the first one.
Yeah, it was big for him, you're right, because, we shouldn't rewrite history. There has been some discussion and debate around his impact. Is he doing enough for Arsenal? Getting the best out of him. He delivered a pretty emphatic answer to that in the derby yesterday.
He certainly did.
But, I do think this first goal was a big moment in isolation. And, again, the sort of serendipitous nature of it. He's come in and he's got a goal against Crystal Palace, his former club. He's got a goal and then 2 more in the same game against the team he turned down. There has been something that feels sort of fated about the entire transfer and his time at Arsenal thus far. Even
this game, I said it to Tom Canton on the Arsecast on Friday. I just have a feeling we're going to get something from Eze in this game. I didn't quite predict a hat-trick or expect a hat-trick. Someone on Blue Sky, by the way, told me that Nicole Holliday, who works for Arsel.com and does the live show, she predicted an Eze hat-trick. So I have to doff my cap to Nicole there, because that's a level of specificity that I certainly didn't reach. But I sort of had this feeling before this game that this was kind of going to be not where he announces himself as an Arsenal player, because that's kind of, he's done that. He's slotted in. I think he's been a really important addition to the team, but there was always that question about end product and more. But I just felt, that there was something going to come from him today, or yesterday rather. And clearly that was something he was feeling too. He must have looked at this fixture and thought, given everything that happened in the summer and given the way it could have gone and the way that it went, that there was something a bit extra. Even Arteta said it in his pre-game press conference. He said, for games like this, you have to be just a little more at it or on it. Can't remember whether it was at or on. I don't want to have the preposition police after me. But, that must have been true for Eze going into this game.
Oh, undeniably. And Mikel also spoke about how, they gave Eze 2 days off after the international break. And after one, he was kind of knocking on the door to come back into training. And he wanted to be ready. He wanted to be prepared. There's a lot of work that goes into, the artistry. And, a special moment for him. And those players before the game, they're looking up at that Tifo and they're seeing Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard and Thierry Henry, Sol Campbell, Tony Adams. But I think what Eze produced yesterday is a moment that means one day he could find himself on one of those. A derby hat-trick.
Sure.
Crazy. Only the 4th man to do it, I believe.
First Arsenal man to do it since 1978.
Yeah.
And when you consider the caliber of some of the players that we have had in the intervening period between 1978 and 2025, and some of the incredible players who have played up front for Arsenal, the talent, the world-class talent that we have had, we should stop and recognise how rare an achievement this is. And what an amazing thing it is for Eberechi Eze to have produced yesterday. Enjoy it and let it sink in, but also, I guess, just enjoy the fact that we have witnessed something that really doesn't happen all that often.
Oh, mate, Alan Sunderland, wasn't it? 1978, yeah. It's the last one. That was history yesterday. Thierry's not got one of those. Dennis hasn't got one of those. Ian Wright's not got one of those. So, very, very, very special. We've got two more goals to talk about, which is lovely.
We do. So, look, they obviously, having seen their plan go out the window, had to change something at halftime. They brought Xavi Simons on, took Danso off, I think it was, went to a back 4, and obviously realised that they had to do something a little bit different. I love this goal because you can imagine the Tottenham dressing room at halftime. And it's like, okay, we're making a change, going to a back four. Keep it tight, lads. Don't give anything away. If we get a goal after 10, 15 minutes, it's 2-1, and then the nerves, they'll start to kick in, and maybe we can take advantage of that. So just don't do anything silly. Don't, give anything away. And within 30 seconds of the second half starting, we're 3-0 up. And again, this comes from Arsenal just monstering Tottenham down the right-hand side. Timber is there. I think he gets maybe fouled or falls over, but Bukayo Saka just wins the ball, gives it back to Timber. The ball comes across then. I think he gets a second bite of the cherry to put the ball to Eze. And I think this finish is like absolutely top class because the ball is bobbling, it's coming across his body, it's on his wrong foot, he has to adjust and he has to sort of guide that ball perfectly into the bottom corner with his, in inverted commas, wrong foot. And he does that. And we're talking like split second stuff here. The quality that he produced in that moment, I think, is absolutely exceptional. Exceptional. Yeah. And it's everything Tottenham did not want. And that's what makes it even more glorious.
The way that he kind of adjusts his stride to deal with that ball that's kind of stuck under his feet and almost hits it in his stride. You know what I mean? Like it's a beautiful finish. I'm surprised that I've not seen more talk about it, actually. I suppose when you score 3 goals, it kind of dilutes the focus. But that is a brilliant, brilliant finish.
He said that was his favourite. He was interviewed on Sky, like straight after the game. They had a quick interview with him and he was asked about his pick of the goals. And he said, I think the second one, was the one. Let me just see if I can get it here. Pick of the goals. He said, they're all good, man. I don't know. Maybe the second one, man. Just the timing of it. It was just the right time. Yeah, man. Honestly, it's a special goal. So
great quote. I have to say, I particularly loved the celebration. That was the hand over the mouth. What I would call the Bergkamp celebration.
Yeah, but that was Bergkamp at Sunderland?
Yeah. When he kind of danced through the corner of the box and curled it into the far corner.
Oh, what a goal.
Hand over the mouth. I always remember, I think Paul Merson was doing it back to him.
Stephen Hughes as well, I think, was there.
Yeah, like, I guess kind of sort of, what does it signify? I suppose. I
don't know. Maybe he's, trying to be a good man of faith and not laugh openly at Tottenham.
Yeah, it's sort of like a faux humility. Anyway, I love it.
We know he's laughing. We know
he's got that big smile underneath. I've got to say, it was the Bergkamp celebration, and this parallel is going to sound mad because there's such different players. But Thierry was up in the studio, and I also thought, it's very Thierry that. It's very Thierry to just sort of roll the ball into the corner from 20 yards out and sort of jog off, shrugging and smiling and joking about it. And he's not a striker. He's not, a sprinter in the way that Thierry was. But there is something in the level of confidence and sort of the insouciance with which he plays that actually does feel quite Thierry to me.
I know what you mean. It's sort of like remember the goal he scored against Sparta Prague, was it? The one where he broke the record, or at least equaled the record, where he just sort of brought it down and then just sort of dinked it with the outside of it. He made it look like the easiest thing in the world to do. Like you look at it and go, well, of course he did that. Why wouldn't you do that? That's just what you do in that situation. And then you realize, hang on, that's actually really, really, really difficult in those circumstances. And I don't think it was quite the same, but certainly the way that he did not let that opportunity pass him by. Maybe it goes back to what you were saying about Arteta, talking about him and Trossard taking the shot when it's maybe not the perfect time to take the shot, because maybe, if it's on your wrong foot, do you try and bring it back onto your right foot and have a go there?
Exactly that. There's like a casual ruthlessness to him.
Casual ruthlessness. Love that. That's perfect.
Yeah. And that's what Thierry had. And I think in front of goal, Eze has it, and he carries it with a similar sort of very classy air. So yeah, I love this goal. Personally, not my favourite. My favourite is still to come.
Still to come. Okay, we'll get there. I mean, it was 3-0 and the mood was jubilant, as you would expect. And then they got a goal, which I think sucked a little bit of the atmosphere out of things, because it's always just like, what do you have to go and do that for?
Yeah.
And it was sort of a really out of the blue kind of a goal. Martin Zubimendi, who I think has been exceptional for Arsenal this season, caught on the ball, which is very uncharacteristic. He's tackled Richarlison, first time shot, David Raya off his line because, well, we were in possession and he plays high up the pitch. It's I can do it. I can be a big enough man this morning, James. Through gritted teeth, grudgingly, I can admit that was a very good finish. But, isn't that just the sort of essence of Tottenham, in that they score a goal that on any other day would be talked about for a long, long time, but which is essentially insignificant and meaningless, much like Tottenham themselves?
Yes, I suppose in many ways it's the perfect goal for them. Yeah, I don't really know what was going on with Zubi in that moment. I've watched it a few times because it's so unlike him. And there is a pass on to Timber, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like directly in front of him. I think maybe one of his touches is a little bit heavy and it just sort of runs him into trouble. But yeah, I was chatting to Art de Roche. It's 3-0 up. I think we were discussing ideas for pieces and what we were going to do in our coverage. And like we both sort of looked up to see Richarlison launch that shot, and I have to say I couldn't quite believe it when it drops into the back of the net. We've had a few of these, haven't we? I mean, obviously Mateta last season, which was a similarly superb finish. I remember Ramsdale getting done in the Europa in some game or other. Was it Sporting Lisbon?
Sporting Lisbon, yeah. Andrew Allen was just sort of asking me about these earlier on.
I do think, I mean, listen, they're exceptional finishes, and maybe we're just a bit unlucky. But is it also a kind of occupational hazard of how our goalkeepers are asked to play, that is going to be on at some point in games? Yeah,
I mean, listen, it's a sort of the perfect storm, if you like, because it's a tackle on Zubimendi. The ball just rolls perfectly for Richarlison to have a go first time. Like, another day, that ball, he has to take a touch and control it, and Raya can backpedal, and all of a sudden that's not a dangerous situation at all. It's just perfectly set up for him to have a go. And to be fair, he finishes it very, very, very well. Andrew also sort of said something about, like, you don't really remember too many of those that miss. They all seem to go in.
That's it. You'd never think twice of it ever again.
Yeah.
And, Richarlison, he gets the ball there, but there's 3 Arsenal defenders within 6 yards of him immediately. Like, I doubt very much there's any other way he can score from that position. So, yeah, I'd be curious to know if it's something opposition teams talk about, because you can't exactly plan to score from the halfway line. But you might say, if there's a turnover 40 yards out, there's a chance Raya will be on the edge of his box.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that is a talking point, because that's generally where he is. It's just that those things don't happen. They very, very rarely happen. We don't get caught in possession in our own half that way. It just is rare. So, I mean, I think it is, again, like I said, just one of those completely, not freakish, but like, you won't see that happen again.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but normally if Arsenal would dominate an opponent to this degree and 3-0 up, and they conceded a kind of freak goal really like that, I really do think that everyone would just sort of shrug it off and go, "Oh, that's a bit annoying." Didn't keep another clean sheet. But I think there is something in the air around a derby that kind of lends an element of volatility to proceedings, where you're like, anything, as bad as Spurs have been, as good as Arsenal have been, as big as the gulf is between these two teams, in a derby, anything can happen.
Well, you might remember a couple of seasons ago, we were 3-0 up in a derby. It ended up 3-2, and it was all very hairy in the last sort of 10 minutes. There was an injury time, and I think Raya gave away a goal, didn't he? He sort of played a really bad pass. and they scored, and then there was a penalty, if you remember, and then the last 10 minutes of that game were excruciating. So I'm imagining that for many people in the crowd, being 3-0 up and comfortable, and then all of a sudden it's 3-1, sort of scratched at that old wound or memory, if you like, you know?
I guess so.
So maybe that was it. And I think as well, yeah, if it's against Burnley, with all due respect, you're probably going, well, fuck it, you know?
Yeah. I think there's that sense as well that, again, as desperately poor as Tottenham were, they have to, like other teams might just sort of not play at that point, but there was a slight feeling of like they have to at least go for it, you know, which you never know what can happen. But we were in safe hands. It was Spurs.
Lads, it's Spurs. Where was the great stat I saw? Might have been on the quotes roundup. I'm not sure. It was something about the XG that Tottenham had, and it was like,
it's something ludicrous, isn't it?
It was like 0.07, so they could play 17 games. Oh, yeah. This is from the XG philosophy. Based on the XG they created, Tottenham would only score once every 17 games if that match were replayed. That's if every game you play is the same game. You know?
So, in fact, just as a quick side note, obviously the Ashes are taking place, and I don't know anything about cricket really. But I asked, I saw that Australia sort of battered England in the first test, and I was asking my followers to explain that to me in football terminology so that I would understand it. And quite a number of Australian fans came back and said, basically, it's like Australia were in the dressing room and said, lads, it's Spurs.
Oh, God.
Which is brutal for fans of the English cricket team to hear, I'm sure, but did enable me to understand the picture very quickly.
So, look, it is 3-1, and they had like a small, minuscule spell where they were slightly buoyed by the goal. I think what we did quite sensibly was sit back and say, okay, come and have a go and we'll stay organised, and all of a sudden we'll just stabilise. You know, we'll do what Tottenham didn't do at the start of the second half and give nothing away, you know, because of how good we are defensively. So tell me then about the third goal. Why is the third goal your favourite?
Well, it's the hat-trick goal for a start. And I mean, just the sheer implausibility of getting a hat-trick against the team you declined to join in the summer in your first North London derby. I don't know. There's so much magic in that. Obviously, also, it's the goal where you relax.
Yeah, it sort of reignited the joyous atmosphere in a way, didn't it?
Yeah, it restarts the party. It's a goal where Trossard lays it on for Eberechi Eze, and I think they were maybe... Well, listen, there's a lot of contenders, but they were two of my favourite performances on the day, so I love seeing them combine. But above and beyond all else, I love it because it sends that Spurs defender careering through shot, sliding to absolutely nowhere.
What is that? Do you know that? You know that meme that used to do the rounds? And it would be like somebody sliding, and then they go into outer space, and it would be that song, you know.
Yeah.
That one. He was that guy.
Still sliding. Is it Destiny Udogie? I'm not entirely sure. It looks like it could be.
Yeah, I think it is, you know.
But the way, so the ball comes across, and Eze just takes a touch. Beautifully taken touch. And Destiny Udogie comes flying through the penalty area and ends up on his arse. And again, it's a great finish. Sweeps it into the bottom corner. Yeah, I mean, listen. Yeah, which was your favourite?
I think the second one. I think because of the timing of that goal and what it did to them straight after the halftime break, and the way he finished that, I think the second one is my favourite.
This is niche as well. I love the way that the ball kind of bounces in the net, if that makes any sense. Like, it kind of hits the net, comes back out, but sort of stays. I don't know. There's just something incredibly satisfying.
Okay, I'm gonna have
if I'd scored it on FIFA, I would have put the control down and stood up, arms in the air, awaiting applause.
I'm going to have a look at it again here. Okay, Vicario launches it. By the way, great header from Piero Hincapié.
Really good header.
Monsters, Richarlison, Merino to Trossard. Eze, there he goes. Boink. Okay, I like it a lot.
It's pretty. It's a pretty goal.
It's just a lovely goal. But are we, James, too reliant on open play goals?
Yeah. A few people have asked about that. It's a worry for sure. All eyes on set pieces against Bayern Munich. I mean, even this goal is interesting, sort of in the way it's built. You know, Merino's there, 40 yards from goal, playing in Trossard, running ahead, Eze running ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because Mikel keeps saying we're asking him to play as a 9, and he says it a lot.
Merino.
Yeah, he keeps saying, you know, we're asking him to play as a 9. And I almost wonder, is he pulling the wool over our eyes? You know, it's like we are, but it is a false 9 a lot of the time. Like in the way that he's deployed, the spaces that he's occupying. A 9 is a simplistic explanation of what Merino's being asked to do, actually.
Yeah. I mean, a 9 you sort of envisage as like the tip of the team, if you like, the guy who's going to be the furthest forward at all times. And he's certainly not that. He really is not that, you know. But I think, listen, there are other players maybe who deserve more plaudits, but I think his development there has been fantastic for Arsenal. And maybe last season was a bit attritional in some ways because of who we didn't have. But, you know, this season when we're without Kai Havertz, when we're without Victor Gyökeres, he's there and he's making a difference and he's making a solid contribution with goals. And even if not necessarily assists, he got an assist for the Trossard goal, obviously, but, you know, his build-up play, we'd be talking about other players linking that play really well, you know. So
well, last season was a nightmare, wasn't it? Let's be honest. Like a lot of it was a write-off. The injuries were so debilitating. Mm-hmm. But without that season, without those injury problems, we don't find Mikel Merino as a solution. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
With Havertz and Gyökeres out, we might not have that to call upon. We might not know we have that, or he has that more specifically in his locker. So even, and I'm sure that's how Mikel Arteta will have reflected and looked at it and thought, you know, even in the more difficult seasons, the ones where it didn't go the way we wanted, there's been lessons, there have been things that we've learned that set us up for future success.
Yeah. Could have been 4 for Eze as well.
Could have been, very easily. It's a good save, that one.
It was a good save. Bukayo Saka did really well to intercept the ball in their half on the right-hand side again, where they were really, really weak. Played it into Eze and the keeper made a save. And then, you know, at that point, I think the game is basically done, isn't it? There were olays from the Arsenal fans. Got a little bit tetchy at one point. I do have a question about that for second half, so we'll wait on that. But, you know, game was done and dusted at 4-1. And I think it really was a reflection of the approaches of both teams. You know, there was a team who came to try not to lose, and there was a team who, you know, obviously at home the onus is on you to do that, but there was a team that really tried and really wanted to win. You know, the Sky, Les Ferdinand was in the studio just sort of bemoaning the lack of any kind of fight. Vicario was on TV afterwards talking about how, you know, they didn't win any duels, the character wasn't right, all this kind of stuff. But I think that's sort of too self-reflective for me. I think Arsenal made Tottenham look bad yesterday. I don't think Tottenham sort of set out to not win tackles. I just think they could not live with the intensity with which Arsenal prepared for this game and then carried out that game plan.
Yeah, I think there's a gulf between the teams. I think there is. You know, Tottenham are down in 9th at the moment. They're 11 points behind after this result. And I think that's kind of what they looked. And Arsenal are the league's outstanding team at this point in time. Even with players missing. And I maintain that is the most sort of mouth-watering, compelling, intriguing part of this season is that I keep looking at it and thinking, well, it's going very well. But I look at the players we have still to come back to add to the group who maybe haven't quite hit their top form yet. And I still think that we should get better.
I mean, if you're Spurs going into this game and you're saying they don't have Gabriel, they don't have Kai Havertz, they don't have Victor Gyökeres, they don't have Martin Odegaard, they don't have Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah.
Madueke and Martinelli are back, but they're sort of on the bench. You know, this could be a time, Nketiah making his first start at centre half. You know, is it potentially a good time, if such a thing exists in this particular season? Is there a good time to play Arsenal? And you might think, well, it's probably not going to get much better than that in terms of the personnel that Arsenal don't have available. And I think that is well worth mentioning, that this is a performance that we put in without like really, really good, high quality players who could start this game. You know, all of those players that we mentioned are potential starters in this game.
Very true. Very true. And Spurs have got their own injury issues, but you're right to point out, this was maybe an opportune moment for them to play us, and we demolished them. We really demolished them. I mean, talk about derby hat-tricks not coming around too often. 4-1 wins in derbies don't come around too often. This was a thrashing.
Yeah.
And a really one-sided contest where all the numbers are in Arsenal's favour. So, yeah, it was kind of perfect, really. I mean, obviously, you'd like to keep the clean sheet. You'd like to Richarlison to not have a happy moment in his life, really. But everything else about this was just fantastic. And on such an important weekend, I've been looking at this weekend for, about 6 weeks now and thinking, Newcastle away for City, that is a tough test for any team. Are they going to come through it? If they do, how will that affect the mood, the complexion of the title race? Obviously, they got beat. That adds its own pressure and expectation. And Arsenal capitalised in such style, in such a big game. Yeah, it's impossible to feel anything other than immense satisfaction.
Sure. There was... I know I've got a question about Declan Rice and maybe an incident with Declan Rice in this game, which is sort of at odds with what I'm about to say. But there was a pre-game interview. I think he did it with beIN Sports. Yeah. And he was asked about, what's different about Arsenal this season. And he said that basically there's a sort of a level of calm within the group, within the squad, that allows them to play with the kind of focus that they need. And I think you can see that in this season, and over the course of this season, it's become more and more apparent that the accusations that Arsenal were too emotional, now leave aside the celebrations at the end, which I think were absolutely perfect, by the way. You should celebrate a big game like that and a moment like that and sort of laud Eberechi Eze and all the players who did so well. Music's playing, everyone's having a great time. Enjoy that. You absolutely should. But this accusation that Arsenal have been too emotional in previous seasons absolutely does not stack up with this team, with this squad and the way that it has played this season. What did you say about casual ruthlessness? Was that what you said about Eze? I think there's a sort of... I don't quite know how to describe it. I'm looking for something to describe the ruthlessness of this Arsenal team, but it's like laser focus. We're like a great white shark in the Premier League, and Spurs were on the fucking lilo in the sea. They were the little boy in Jaws. And we ate them all up. We gobbled them all up. And all you can see is the sort of bloody remains of the inflatable washing up on the beach as Spurs' mother desperately seeks her child. But it's dead. It's in the belly of the shark. And we're the shark.
We're the shark. We're the great white. Yeah. Or red. This is more the theme of the weekend. I agree. I think there's something incredibly focused and efficient about this group at this point in time. A kind of laser beam focus on what they want to achieve. And I feel really positive about their prospects of doing it. You know, I think this is a team that absolutely can win the league. I think it's a team and a group that from this position probably should win the league. And I believe it's a team that will win the league. I do believe that.
I hope with everything that you're right, you know, for all of us, for them, for the manager, for the players, for the fans, you know, I hope, you know, absolutely you're right. But I share your confidence. Is that the right way of putting it? That I think in terms of, you know, when you look at a team and think, is this a team that is equipped? Does it have the tools to win a league, to go the distance? Then I don't think there's any question about that with this Arsenal team. There's a long way to go.
There is, and listen, of course.
Football is football, but I think you're right to say that in terms of what we have built, what has developed, and the team that we're looking at right now, that it is probably as well placed to win a title since the best Arsene Wenger teams. You know, that sort of 2001 to right through to 2004, 2005 team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think some people would say, you know, could we have won it in the Leicester year, for example? But I don't think that was anywhere near as good a team. It was more a case of being quite an open field in that particular season. But yeah, I just don't see many weaknesses in this squad. And actually, I'm sort of intrigued. Like, I totally understand any fan who's like, well, don't jinx it. We don't know what's going to happen. I totally understand that. But I also think that almost the final step for Arsenal on their way to winning a big one will be sort of like the conviction of the manager, the players, and indeed the fans that it is going to happen. And I wonder when that will come. I don't think it'll be just anytime soon. I think it'll all be one game at a time. But once we get into 2026, I do wonder if there'll be a moment where that shifts. We sense a shift slightly from we could do this to we're going to do. Yeah, well, listen, I hope with everything that I have that's where we are at some point in 2026, because it's overdue, and I think we've all been through enough for it to happen, you know. It'd be well earned.
Absolutely, it would, and it's the start to a very good start to what is a big week, of course, for Arsenal. So maybe we'll pause here, will we? Because we've got some questions about midweek, Bayern Munich, and all the rest. So unless there's anything else.
No. Let's get into part two.
Let's get into part two. We will take a little bit of a break. We'll come back with your questions and more in part two right after this, after what was, well, a great day. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. This is part two of the show where we answer the questions that you sent to us on Blue Sky at gunnerblog.bsky.social and also at arseblog.com over on Blue Sky. Also on the Arseblog Discord chat server, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member on Patreon. Do you want to go first or will I go first?
You go first, Andrew.
Okay. A couple of questions like this. One from the Discord, Jason M. Williams. He said, I was struck by the aggression and edge that we saw at points from Saka and Rice. Do you think the other leaders of the team are intentionally stepping up their physicality, knowing Big Gabby, who is such an intimidator, is missing? Or do you think it's just because Spurs have so many players whose faces just force you to knock them over? And Jack, who's at that jackrice.bsky.social, asking about his distant cousin Declan. He said, what do you think about Declan Rice losing his cool a bit? I personally loved it, but on the TV coverage, he clearly told the linesman to fuck off after not getting a foul next to him. And I think he was bubbling from there. And he was involved in a little bit of a, well, I don't know if it was a little bit of a thing. There was sort of a bit of pushing and shoving after he got a yellow card and sort of vaguely caught Xavi Simons as he was running by. And I think maybe the reaction from the Spurs players was more about them trying to demonstrate that they were up for something in this game, given that they were 4-1 down at the time.
Yes. Yeah. Give their fans something to shout about. I did notice that from Declan Rice, that there was a sort of more of an edge to him than we see. I think that is just derbies, isn't it? I think it's atmosphere and rivalry and everything that's said to them pre-game, the build-up. I think that's part of it. I like the question's idea of sort of, is it partly about making up for Gabriel's absence? Because he is so much a part of that face of the team. And maybe they did feel a sense of needing to raise it up a gear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was pretty palpable that there was a bit of just an extra few % of intensity from Arsenal.
Yeah. I thought the Rice stuff was interesting because, you know, he's clearly a big guy and strong, but you wouldn't necessarily associate him with, I don't want to say dirty because that's not what it was or what he is, but he tends to be...
He's a gentle giant.
Yeah, seem a bit like that, a bit more affable, generally speaking, but he wasn't shy to sort of get stuck in yesterday. I think it was just how up for it he was in this particular game because, you know, as I mentioned in the first half, the speed with which he got around the pitch and the way he reacted to every possible ball breaking anywhere near him was unbelievable. He was just so good yesterday in that sense. So I think when you're that focused and you're that up for a game and you're actually playing, it sort of gives you an extra layer of energy or something like that. So it's possible. Adrenaline, yeah, it could be exactly that, where you're sort of a bit wound up because of, you know, the way that you're actually playing the game. Plus, they have a lot of players you'd like to push over. So
there is that. It is unfair that he's allowed to play in a jetpack, basically. The way that he, zooms around the pitch is sort of absurd. It must be so psychologically draining to play against Declan Rice because there's the physical aspect of trying to keep up with him and then just mentally losing second ball after second ball after second ball.
Oh,
I can imagine that would be exhausting. Here's a question about, of all people, it's about Eberechi Eze.
Wow. Oh, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah,
today.
Left field.
What the fuck?
What can I say? It comes from Bennis Burkamp on Discord, and they say, goodly fucking morning. Where does Eze's hat-trick rank in the pantheon of great Arsenal hat-tricks? In recent memory, Burkamp's against Leicester and Arshevin's 4 against Liverpool spring to mind. But because it's a North London derby, because of all the narrative around Eze, and because of the sheer quality of the goals, is this the best and most satisfying Arsenal hat-trick ever?
Wow. I mean, the Bergkamp hat-trick against Leicester came in a season where we won the title, right?
Yeah, 97-98.
Yeah. So that gives that a little bit of something, you know, even though it was that game ended 3-3, right?
Yes, it did.
So we didn't even win the game with a hat-trick of that quality, but it was part of a title-winning season. Arshavin 4 against Liverpool was unbelievably enjoyable, but also so unbelievably frustrating at the same time.
We didn't win.
That you can go to Anfield and score 4 goals. One guy gets 4 goals and you still don't win the game. That's crazy. Crazy. I mean, it has to be up there with one of the most consequential, I guess.
Yeah. Did Van Persie score a hat-trick at Stamford Bridge in a game we won?
Was that the game that Andre Santos scored?
I'm not sure if he scored two.
I think he scored two because didn't Walcott got
October
at least
2011. Van Persie hat-trick against Chelsea, 5-3. Okay. He did score.
That was a fun one.
At Stamford Bridge. I'm just sort of scanning back now through a list of hat-tricks. It makes me laugh. Adebayor got 2 against the worst team in Premier League history, Derby County, in the same season. Stat padding, of course. I mean, Thierry Henry, April 2004 against Liverpool. Is that a hat-trick?
Yes.
That's got to be number one for me.
I think so. Especially with, what happened that season and the context of that game as well, given that we'd gone behind just before halftime.
Yeah. Cano at Chelsea in 99.
Oh.
We've had a couple at Stamford Bridge.
The Cano one was unbelievable. Last 15 minutes of the game as well. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What was his name? Ed De Hoy? The goalkeeper. Ed De Hoy? Yeah, he came out and Cano just sort of
on the byline.
Frank Leboeuf on the line trying to head the ball away. What an unbelievable game that was.
Do you know the last Arsenal hat-trick prior to Eze in the Premier League?
God, no. I don't actually.
Believe.
Aubameyang?
Edward Nketiah.
Eddie Nketiah against Sheffield United. I was there. I was there for that game, actually, yeah.
I guess that's number one then.
That's it. That's the one that means the most to me. Nothing win against Sheffield United.
I'm hoping it's a good omen that there were a couple at Stamford Bridge there.
Yeah, a hat-trick at Stamford Bridge from somebody would be very nice.
Well, what about this question? Acolyte Foxy of Cult of Nurgle says, "Goodly morning, gentlemen. With City and Liverpool losing at the weekend and Chelsea now in second, do you still think City are our biggest threat? Or have Chelsea taken up that mantle with them playing us next weekend? I think the Chelsea match could be our biggest game of the season in the league."
Well, I mean, it is huge now, obviously, because of where they are in the league and everything else. I don't discount, I said this to you at the weekend, I don't discount Chelsea as title challengers at all. And I think, if people say Arsenal should be challenging for the title because of the money we've spent, well, that must apply to Chelsea, right?
Yeah.
I still think it will be City who will be the closest challenger. I think if Arsenal win the league this season, if we finish above Manchester City, I think we win the league.
I think so too, but I do think Chelsea are capable of beating us at the weekend. I think they're close enough that, if the margins don't go in our favour or we don't turn up, it could be a tough game. If we play to the absolute best of our ability, then I certainly think we'll get something there. But I see Chelsea maybe not as a team who can win the Premier League, but certainly one who can make it harder for us to, and who can be a nuisance, a real nuisance. So, yeah, I think it's a big game. I mean, 6-point gap between the two sides. Chelsea will feel, if they beat us, very much on for them.
Sure, why not? Why not?
I guess if we beat them, that'll be 9. And we'll, be absolutely delighted. Who does City play next weekend? They're at home to Leeds. So,
well, there's a guaranteed 3 points for Manchester City.
Yeah. Captain Erling Haaland in your fantasy team, boys.
Yeah. Haaland scores 9 goals in one game against Leeds.
Yeah, so I think we can probably imagine that they might be up to 25 points by the time we play Chelsea. So that they'll be within 4 of us by the time we kick off at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah. Big game, but obviously there's a midweek game as well. Just while we're on this, stateside Gunner, who's at sullivanjeff.bsky.social, says, our signings have a penchant for scoring against their former clubs. Next weekend, are we looking at Madueke scoring a stonker like Rice versus West Ham, or an acrobatic feat like Eze versus Palace?
Yeah, you know what? I think this Chelsea game certainly will have been in his mind, won't it, through his rehab? And I think he would have been thinking, I'd love to be back for that one. I thought he looked pretty sharp coming off the bench yesterday. I know it was a more stretched game at that point in time, but great option to have.
Would be a good time for him to score his first Arsenal goal, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think I'm right in saying he's actually not got a goal or assist to his name
Not yet.
far.
Not yet.
Which, I remember finding that slightly surprising, because I actually think he's sort of, when he's been on the pitch, he's largely done pretty well and exceeded a lot of people's expectations. But yeah, I think he'd love to see some numbers against his name. So
For sure.
Hat-trick, I guess. Hat-trick in the last 15 minutes.
No, first 15 minutes, please. First.
Okay.
I don't know if my heart could take that.
I enjoyed this, by the way, from Simeon. How much of the credit for Eze's hat-trick belongs to Phil Foden?
Saw
Good
quite
question.
a lot of that. Quite a lot of that. I like this one as well. Maybe you have the answer. I'm not quite sure I know. miw.afc.bsky.social is asking, where do Tottenham get battered?
I believe that it's actually everywhere they go.
Everywhere they go.
Everywhere they go.
Everywhere they go. Okay.
I mean, Spurs. We had a few questions. A few people sort of like asked for like hashtag Frank out and stuff. And I did have a look, but there wasn't a great deal. I think they sort of,
it's too early. They haven't lost their minds sufficiently yet. You know, they're angry. They've lost the derby. But, you know, there's still that sort of hope that the new manager, who, you know, doesn't seem like a complete idiot, can do something for them. So we need them to sort of lose the mental stability that comes with a Tottenham season, you know?
I think that's sort of, exactly. The full meltdown has not quite happened. There were a couple. I mean, look, T on X said, to all these Spurs hashtag Frank out fans who were delirious a few months ago when we got him, you are part of the problem.
Oh, I love that one.
He should never have been our manager in the first place, which I liked.
I do like that one, you know?
Yeah.
No, you know the real problem with our club? It's, you know...
It's the fans who supported the team.
Yeah, random fan who said one thing once. It's, you're the reason why nothing
You gave the manager a chance, you mug. And then DZ said, it's too early. Give him time. Blah, blah, blah. Real fans knew he was out of his depth after the Wolves and Bournemouth shit shows. Get him out now!
Okay, well, he's lost his mind quite quickly.
He's leading the charge, really.
Okay.
For the lost mind.
Okay. We'll keep an eye on him.
I think it's certainly... Let's put a pin in it for now, but I think we might be able to come back to it later in the season.
I think it's inevitable, you know. Whoever's in charge, it will come around. It's the history of the Tottenham, as a wise man once said. Anyway, I did have a question about Trossard.
Yes.
And it comes from Wise Marklar, who says, how much do you think Trossard's elevated squad status has contributed towards his form and happiness this season?
His pay rise?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think the pay rise wasn't just like, here, have a few extra quid. It was recognition of his seniority. It was recognition of his contribution. You know, we've dealt out the stats in recent weeks that only Bukayo Saka in the same period as when Trossard joined the club has got more goals and assists.
10 goal contributions this season.
You know? So it wasn't just like, here, have a few quid, go on a nice holiday, get yourself a new Renault Megane. It was really about saying, we appreciate what you're doing for this team, and we recognize that we have to, you know, make that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Tangible in a way, right? And therefore, what you've got is a player who feels appreciated, who feels like, well, look, I'm doing all this and the club support me, the manager supports me, and that is reflected in either my squad status or my pay status as well, which is an important thing.
Yeah. And I remember hearing at the time when his contract was being adjusted that Mikel Arteta was a real driving force behind that, that it's something that he specifically was insistent upon and wanted. And he was very clear, wasn't he, in his press conference yesterday, Mikel? I don't know if you...
I saw it, yeah.
Saw it, but he was kind of asked about, there were rumours about Trossard going in the summer, and I get his exact wording, but he basically said, no chance.
Yeah.
You know, I was very clear, we cannot lose this player. He is absolutely like in the zone right now. Mm-hmm. Like he is in the groove. He's probably playing the best football of his life.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about his age. I mean, we talk about the team and that kind of calmness and self-assurance. I think clearly it's a group that is arriving at maturity. But Trossard is 30. He'll be 31 in a few weeks' time, I think I'm right saying. And, you know, he's a man.
Good spot.
And he's a real grown-up, though. You know what I mean? Like, and this is his time. It's now. It's now for him. And I think, yeah, the club showed faith in him. They gave him a pay rise, but they didn't really give him an extension. They didn't say, here's a 5-year contract. Put your feet up. They said, we're going to keep you on your existing deal and give you a pay bump. And that means you've got to deliver right now. And he could have gone. He could have gone to Turkey and had that 5-year contract and that security. He could have chosen that path, but he didn't, because I think he senses now is the time. And this is a player who came to Arsenal relatively late, you know, who was at Brighton in the Premier League, who you know, was with Genk before that. Don't get me wrong, he was a good player, an international caliber player. Did he think he'd necessarily be playing for a club, starting for a club, trying to win a Premier League and a Champions League? Did he see that in his future at 30, 31? Maybe. But I still think he's got an appreciation and an understanding of where he's at. And I think, I was thinking about this yesterday, you know, Mikel Arteta came into Arsenal a bit later in his career too. And there was this sense with him of like really trying to maximise that opportunity. And I sort of see that in Trossard too. And I just think this is just a player at the peak of his powers. It's sort of his year. And yeah, I hope he gets the reward at the end of it.
I mean, you made a comparison to Freddie Ljungberg earlier in the show. And I think, you know, stylistically they're quite different. But in terms of the contribution they might make to a title-winning season, if you can replicate that, then, you know, he will go down in folklore, won't he?
I think he will. You know, I think he's going to go down as one of our great, like, pleasant surprises in terms of how a signing has turned out. And yeah, I think so many people are now saying, oh, it's time to put some respect on Trossard, you know, like it's time to reappraise Trossard. Yeah, I do think the perception has really shifted around him. And I can't help but think back to the summer and the outcry when it kind of emerged he'd likely be staying.
You know what I think about that. He just needs to dye that little grey bit red. That's all we need now to win. That's the last step we need for winning the title.
Okay, full Freddy, yeah. Substitutions. We had some questions about those.
I saw those, all right, yeah.
Gerard on Blue Sky. I was surprised that 3-0 Arteta didn't make a couple of substitutions with the Bayern game in midweek and Spurs being a mid-table team at best. What subs would you have made if you were Mikel's pure white trainers? David said, with the match well in hand and Bayern and Chelsea on the horizon, why didn't Arteta take off players like Saka, Rice, Saliba and Timber? We had a few like that.
Yeah, there was a couple, one on Discord as well from Eyeball Paul 2733. Said, lackluster Spurs, 4-1 up at 76 minutes. Couldn't the substitutes have come on a bit earlier than they did? When Ari and Miles Lewis-Kelly only getting a few minutes, and Nketiah sort of limped off, which I hope is not an injury. I think it's probably just a consequence of playing his first Premier League game at that intensity. Yeah, I mean, I think as ever, there's always that question about Mikel Arteta and his substitutes. Like when Rice was on the yellow card, I was like, why can't we just put Christian Norgard on for the last 8 minutes,
Yeah.
Just don't run any risk of losing Declan Rice to a second yellow card so he misses the game at Stamford Bridge, I'm not saying I'm complaining about that. Who am I to complain after we've beaten Spurs 4-1 in a North London derby? I'm not here to second guess Mikel Arteta in that sense. But, it did strike me that there were maybe a couple of changes that could have been made a little bit earlier, like Timber for Ben White. Could Ben White have got 15 minutes? Could Miles Lewis-Kelly have come on a few minutes earlier? Winery a few minutes earlier? Norgard maybe? So there were changes that certainly I would have thought about given the week that we have, but maybe there's method in the madness, if you can call it madness.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, I was sort of surprised, actually, that Eze didn't come off, just so we would get that moment, that sort of, that managers often do when a player puts in a performance like that. Could it have been Winery for Eze a bit earlier, and then Eze gets the sort of the ovation as he goes off? I know it's a small, basically inconsequential thing, but
Trossard got a huge ovation.
Yeah.
I suppose I understand the question, especially coming off the back of the Sunderland game, right, where we were again a bit surprised about a lack of changes. My only thought is is it because he is going to mix it up more for Bayern than we're anticipating? Is that's not the noise of a man who agrees. but I do wonder, could he leave one or two out who played the 90? I don't know.
Well, we had a question from JMO, Dr. Jimmy P.bsky.social, who says, how would you approach, in terms of team selection and endeavour, a Bayern midweek group stage Champions League game that we in no way need to win, when it seems the Premier League title is there for the taking this season, if we can maintain the energy levels and fitness of core players? To what extent would you be comfortable with rotation against a team as good as Bayern Munich have been this season, albeit with the sort of Bundesliga asterisk to an extent, because they've for so many years been so far out in front of pretty much every other team in terms of squad quality and depth, that maybe the true reflection of Bayern's quality is what they do in Europe. But of course, they've been very good in Europe as well. They've beaten Chelsea, they've beaten PSG. This is not a game where you want to get turned over because you've made too many changes. So it is a tricky one, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I do think the Chelsea game is the bigger one, because of the Champions League format, I know I'm not saying Mikel will see it that way, but in terms of its potential impact on our season, I think Chelsea has to be the priority. Bayern and Arsenal are two of the three teams that have got maximum points in the Champions League so far. It's them and Inter Milan. It's a really tough game. I guess in terms of how I would approach it, I think I'd be looking at sort of 2 or 3 changes if possible. I think that should be possible with the group that we've got.
I mean, he played Lewis-Kelly, for example, against Atletico Madrid. Do you expect that to be the case again?
Yeah, could be. I mean, what I would say is, I think we're going to qualify in the top 8. I do think we'll make it. I'm not sure there's a huge advantage to finishing top of the top 8 as opposed to finishing 8th. Do you know what I mean? the draw last year showed. I think it's pretty variable. What you're not really guaranteed anything. You want to be in that top 8 and skip around essentially, but beyond that, what would I change? Yeah, I'd look at the left back maybe, especially with Calafiori having had those issues during the international break.
Right back.
I find that hard, Just Timber's just flying, isn't he? He's absolutely flying. Yeah, maybe right back. I think there's others I would have first.
Change in midfield,
maybe. Like, maybe Martin Odegaard's ready for something.
Yeah.
Ready for an hour, maybe. Maybe that lets you rest an Eze or a Trossard. Might we have Victor Gyökeres back?
Don't know. We'll have to wait and see there. He was, pictured arriving to training, but not obviously in the squad for the game.
I mean, we don't know, and Mikel's not going to tell us. During his rehab, I had heard that Spurs was the aim, but Bayern was maybe more likely. So that might still be in play. Could Gabriel Martinelli be involved, or Madueke?
Yeah.
Madueke came on, didn't he? Could this be a chance for him to start and get some minutes? I don't know. What would you do?
I think I would. Like, it's one of those games against one of those teams who've caused us a lot of problems. And I think if there's not a psychological barrier or something like that, but I think it might mean something more to Mikel Arteta than it might mean to all of us. I mean, I want to beat Bayern Munich, but again, as you say, in terms of importance, it's not massive that we beat Bayern Munich. But I also think there is a need to recognise that despite how well, let's say, Jurrien Timber is playing, and he's playing exceptionally well and is probably, as you said, the best fullback in the Premier League right now, that in order to maintain that level, we can't play him in every minute of every game. So I think you've got to trust Ben White. If fitness permits, you've got to trust someone like Ben White, who is and has been a really, really good player for Arsenal, a very dependable player for Arsenal. So is it one of your spinal pieces of the team? Not really. I mean, he's been so good. I understand why you would feel like you want to play him. Sometimes when a player's in that kind of momentum, you just keep playing them. Yeah. He might think, oh God, I gave Victor Gyökeres a midweek off, and then he came back and got injured. So I need to sort of maintain the load on Timber. So he's sort of just chugging along with all that momentum. I don't know. But I feel like there are probably 3 or 4 changes that he should make for this game. But given the quality of the players that he could introduce, it's not like previous seasons where you are substantially weakening your team by making changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough one, though. Tough one.
It is a tough one. It is. Well, we'll find out very soon.
Very soon. Do you have anything else?
I think we've mainly covered it. Oh, one thing I meant to say earlier is when I was being asked about the physicality or the edge to Rice and Saka. Saka had the armband, didn't he? Like, Gabriel was missing, but Odegaard was missing too. And I think, like, those are clearly 2 of those real leaders in that dressing room. So I do think that idea of, like, having to step up in the absence of others may have been the driving force there.
Yep, fair enough. I also sort of quite enjoyed this from Gareth, who's at gw.bsky.social. He says, a player receives the ball, looks up and instantly sees a teammate and passes the ball through the air about 40 yards. Quite impressive, but not that uncommon or sensational. So how far out does a player passing a ball through the air into an unguarded net need to be counted as a worldie? And that sort of determination to absolutely play down anything that Tottenham or Richarlison did, I think, is admirable. A good way maybe to see us out, you know.
Chapeau, I think.
Chapeau to you. Okay. Well, listen, it's been a very enjoyable podcast. It was a very enjoyable weekend of Premier League football for Arsenal. Sorry to all the people who asked the "what do I do if my erection has not gone down?" questions. I don't have an answer really for that. Just grin and bear it, I think, is the way you deal with situations like that. Get a grip. I don't know.
Oh, man.
But look, it's been great. It's been an amazing weekend for Arsenal, for Eberechi Eze, for Arsenal fans. And we go into the rest of this big week. We will have an episode of The 30 for you tomorrow because there is Premier League football tonight. Manchester United and Everton are playing tomorrow. So we'll keep our Premier League roundup for that. If you want to get on board our Patreon and support everything that we do on Arseblog, you can do it at patreon.com/Arseblog. We'd be delighted to have you over there. If not, no worries. It's great to have you here as always. Thank you for listening, subscribing, downloading, and all the rest. And we will catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.